Hello everybody, welcome back to Killer Film Reviews. Today we'll be reviewing the film Transformers 3 Dark of the Moon. For our cast, we have Shia LaBeouf as Sam Witwicky, Rose Huntington as Carly, Tyrese Gibson as Epps, Josh Duhamel as Lennox, John Turturro as Simmons, Patrick Dempsey as Dylan, Frances McDormand as Mirren, John Malkovich as Bruce Brazos, Kevin Dunn as Ron Witwicky, Julie White as Judy Witwicky, and Alan Tudyk as Dutch, and Ken Jeong as Jerry Wang. Of course, Glenn Morshower as General Morshower, and Buzz Aldrin as Buzz Aldrin. Bill O'Reilly as Bill O'Reilly, and Lester Spahite as Eddie. Alright. So this film basically came out in a transitional period for Transformers. Transformers basically was dying at this point, in my eyes. I noticed this after Revenge of the Fallen, but Dark of the Moon is where Transformers just starts falling off the radar for many. I think it was just due to the fact that a lot of the main cast disappears after this film. The only ones that ever return are Lennox, Josh Duhamel, pretty much. Otherwise, the rest of the cast after this movie just kind of disappears, except for the voice actors for the Transformers themselves, which was unfortunate. You know, I would have loved to have seen a comeback of the evil agent for the Transformers, you know. Just to refresh my mind, yeah, Patrick Dempsey as Dylan. I would have loved to have seen him come back in the later installments, but that never ended up happening. At least Transformers 4 was saved by lockdown, at least. That was something that was decent, but yeah. Changing the guard pretty much occurs after this film. Our overall plot is basically focused on the Transformers finding a long-lost comrade in arms, Sentinel Prime, on the moon when they go to Chernobyl in Russia there, which, yeah, is a sore point for many reasons right now, which I'm not going to get into. Chernobyl basically is... They find a part for their Autobot ship, the Ark, and Optimus basically rages at Mirren for not telling him this before, as he said, all secrets were supposed to be shared between Autobots and humans, pretty much. And she basically says, like, they didn't know either, which is kind of silly because the higher levels of the government in that universe basically knew what was going on pretty much. And they come in and they give their spiel. You see the late Buzz Aldrin show up and talk to Optimus there for a bit. But they end up going back over and taking their ship to go visit the Ark, and they go visit it. They find Sentinel, they bring him home, they revive him pretty much. Sentinel and Optimus kind of have a back and forth about how how Optimus wants to give Sentinel the Matrix of leadership. Sentinel declines, pretty much being like, this is your turn to lead now, this is your world, a world I do not know. Pretty much. Megatron is hiding out in Africa with Starscream, pretty much, and Soundwave, and Megatron gives the order, hey, go kill all the humans that have conspired with us to bring Sentinel to Earth eventually. Pretty much goes and sends Laserbeak to go off and go on a killing spree of all those that participated in the closing of the space program for NASA in this film universe. Obviously, there's still a lot of questions and stuff as to why we stopped going to the moon after the 70s, pretty much. Who knows? I mean, I'm not going to go down the conspiracy theory rabbit hole like I'm sure someone would want me to. At this point, you know, they went on the moon most likely. They did all that stuff up there. But back to the film. We're getting too off track here. So, Megatron is still visibly damaged from the previous fight. He's always like hiding out in Africa and all that. Laserbeak, going off on his killing spree, basically goes and gets rid of a lot of that program, pretty much a lot of the people in it, including Ken Jeong at one point. Ken Jeong is playing a different character. He's not playing himself, he's playing the astrophysicist Jerry Wang in this film, pretty much. I didn't even realize that until now after reading the cast list. Just shows how I need to pay more attention to films. But yes, I did notice Ken Jeong in Endgame. I did not miss that cameo where he's a security guard. But yeah. Back to Dark the Moon. Basically, you have a lot of plot elements revolve around Sam and his role within the team for the Transformers. Basically, he eventually learns that his role is that of a messenger and not as a fighter, pretty much. Dylan gives him this evil robotic watch, which basically kind of monitors what he says, of course, at one point in the film. Distrust is built between humans and Transformers in this film, which eventually leads to the events of Age of Extinction, pretty much the film that comes after this. Megatron and Sentinel basically stage their coup. They basically take over. They tell the humans to exile the Autobots, which they do, of course, predictably. And at that point, Megatron and Sentinel take over Chicago and make it their own little nesting ground for their troops, so that they can bring Cybertron to the planet, pretty much, and use the humans as a slave labor workforce. At that point, Sam is trying to desperately search for his girlfriend, Carly, who we never see after this film for whatever reason. Oh man, I'm gonna guess it was the box office numbers, them not being able to get a higher salary in the Transformers 4, or just director Michael Bay being like, I don't want to hire these fools again and pay them a lot of money. I want to save money and hire a bunch of new actors, and I want to get Mark Wahlberg instead of Sam. That and the fact that the actor that played Sam pretty much was going through a mental crisis around the time after this movie for a while. We all go through mental things occasionally. It's understandable. But onto kind of how the film plays out. You have Optimus and Bumblebee eventually come back after Sam tries to go to Chicago and tries to save his girlfriend. They end up going back over there and wreaking havoc and basically destroying a lot of Decepticon butt there. The Autobots win the day, of course. Megatron and Sentinel end up fighting each other. After Optimus fights Sentinel, Sentinel basically just almost had Optimus, but Carly basically convinces Megatron to go and fight, basically by roasting him and saying, "Look at you, you're not the leader of the Decepticons. Sentinel is. You're Sentinel's B-word, of course." But yeah, Megatron just basically takes a shotgun and shoots Sentinel. Sentinel basically loses the fight from then on because Optimus basically goes after Megatron because Sentinel's out of it. And then he eventually goes after Sentinel and is basically like, you do not understand leadership, blah blah blah, pretty much. One of the unrealistic relationships in this series I just want to touch on pretty much is the Carly-Sam relationship. In my own life, I don't really think a girl of that high of status would just sit there and go after a guy like that. Then again, I'm sure relationships like that have happened, but I don't think that those are going to happen most of the time. Because let's be honest, I think the real boyfriend was Dylan in this film. I don't think it was Sam until after Dylan started making threats on Carly. After Dylan was making threats on Carly, then she switched basically allegiances to Sam, I would say, at that point. Because you see pictures of her and Dylan in the film itself, basically. So it makes you wonder. But it is what it is, you know. I'm just going to say relationships in general take time. You got to start with friends first. You can't sit there and rush into things, okay? It's not the fancy pickup lines which work. It's the I'm here for you, let's talk about this, those sort of things, which work better, honestly, in my opinion. And just being deep with people, but unfortunately in these days and times that seems to be disappearing all the time, unfortunately. But overall, the film itself, is it a 10 out of 10 for me? No. It's more of a 7 out of 10 just because they don't really take the time to really talk more about plot. It's basically action this, action that, no explanation of plot or what Optimus is doing for parts of the film, you know? But honestly, I think the intended audience for this film was, again, young preteen or teenager boys, pretty much for the most part. So yeah, it pretty much fulfills its purpose as it was at that time. Culture has changed since that time. We're more accepting, I think, these days than we were back then. Is there any nitpicking I need to do on the film? Other than that, I don't think so at this point. I think it does what it did for its time. It came out with a nice action movie for people to enjoy, and I still enjoy this film, believe it or not. Despite the fact I give it a 7 out of 10, I still enjoy watching this film occasionally. I think that, honestly, The Last Night is the film that I kind of despise out of the franchise, because it's basically what caused the Michael E. Bay universe to basically end, and then the Transformers getting rebooted, unfortunately. I would have loved to see the whole plot with Unicron play out, but we'll save that for the Transformers The Last Night review when I get around to it. Next film review should be Titanic. I'm slowly watching it here, an hour a day. I should have it out just before the 110th anniversary of the sinking of the Titanic. So look forward to that, and I'll see you on the next video. Don't forget to like, watch, and subscribe. Thank you.